She was born in a small village in Mexico, sometime around 183 4. No one knew exactly where, or even when, but when people first saw her, they couldn't forget her. Her face was covered in thick dark hair, her lips and jaw were unusually large, her teeth were different, sharper, stronger, and her eyes, they carried both gentleness and sadness, as if she already knew she didn't belong. They called her a monster, they called her the Bear Woman. But Julia Pastrana was no monster, she was a woman. Intelligent, kind, and gifted with a voice so beautiful that it could quiet any room. From an early age, Julia was treated as something between a miracle and a mistake. In her small community, people whispered that she was cursed, touched by spirits, but those who truly knew her said she was warm, polite, and full of life. She loved music, she loved dancing, and she dreamed of a life where people would see her for who she really was, not just how she looked. That dream, however, led her into the cruelest stage the world could offer, the circus. When she was still young, a man convinced her that she could earn money by performing. He promised fame, travel, a better life. Julia believed him. Soon, she was taken far from home, first to the United States, then across Europe. Everywhere she went, posters appeared with titles like "The Ugliest Woman in the World," "The Hybrid Between a Woman and an Ape." Crowds lined up, paying to see her. They stared, they laughed, they whispered, and yet, when Julia stepped on stage, she didn't hide. She wore elegant dresses, sang songs in perfect English and Spanish, and spoke with grace that left audiences silent for a few brief moments. She wasn't an object, she was an artist. In the midst of her travels, Julia met a man named Theodore Lent, who would become both her manager and her husband. He was clever, ambitious, and saw Julia not as a wife, but as a business under his control. She performed in Germany, Austria, and even Russia. Each show made him richer, each applause left her emptier. But Julia, despite everything, believed in love. She believed that maybe, one day, she could live a normal life, away from the lights, the crowds, the endless eyes, and for a short time, it seemed that dream might come true. She became pregnant. She smiled again. She told those close to her that she wanted to raise her child away from the stage, but fate had something far darker waiting, because for Julia Pastrana, the applause would not end, even after death. In 1860, in a cold theater in Moscow, Julia Pastrana gave birth. The audience outside had no idea what was happening behind the curtain, the applause from her last performance still echoing in the air. Her baby was born with the same condition as her, a boy, covered in hair, with facial features the world would again call monstrous. But to Julia, he was perfect, her son, her proof that beauty existed beyond appearance. She held him close, whispering lullabies through weak breaths, but within a few days, the baby died, and not long after, Julia followed. The stage lights dimmed, the crowd moved on, but the show wasn't over. Her husband, Theodore Lent, refused to let her go. Instead of burying her, he had Julia's body embalmed, preserved using special chemicals. Her skin hardened, her expression frozen between pain and peace. Then he did the unthinkable. He placed her body, and the body of their infant son, in glass display cases, and continued touring. People paid again to see Julia Pastrana. Only now, she was not performing, she was dead for years. The mummified Bear Woman traveled from country to country, Germany, England, Norway. Thousands stared, some out of fascination, others out of guilt. Scientists studied her body, doctors wrote papers. And all the while, her story was treated as spectacle, not sorrow. Decades passed, wars began and ended, the world changed, but Julia did not. Her body remained on display for over a century. Even in death, she could not escape the eyes that once watched her. It wasn't until the 21st century, almost 150 years after her death, that someone finally asked a simple question: does she not deserve peace? In 2013, after long efforts by historians and human rights advocates, Julia Pastrana's body was finally returned to her homeland, Mexico. There, in a quiet ceremony with no audience, no stage, and no applause, she was laid to rest. For the first time in her life and death, Julia Pastrana was free. But her story doesn't end in silence, because Julia's life continues to challenge how we see beauty, difference, and humanity itself. She was born in a world that valued perfection, and yet, she showed grace in the face of cruelty. She lived as an outcast, and yet, she carried a dignity that outshone the mockery around her. Julia Pastrana wasn't the Bear Woman. She was a woman who loved, who sang, who dreamed, and whose story reminds us how dangerous it is to forget compassion the next time someone is judged for how they look. Remember her. Remember how the world failed to see the human behind the face, because behind every label, there's a heartbeat. Behind every spectacle, a soul, and that truth is what makes her story one of the most shocking and heartbreaking in all of human history. This is Biography Plus, bringing you the untold stories that still echo through time. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe, so together we can keep history alive.